Welcome back, everybody. Here with the 2025 NFL season preview series for the number 5 team, the Detroit Lions, coming in within the top 5 of my NFL power rankings. Happy to talk about this team today. An exciting franchise, a franchise that's going through a renaissance, trying to really enter a period in which is the most successful in franchise history. Obviously, under Dan Campbell with Jared Goff, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously AIDAN Hutchinson as well. Happy to have him back on this roster, certainly. And so, as far as the team direction for this entire franchise, it's something you got to say suffering from success, which is a little bit of meme online. But the reason why is because when you have success in the National Football League, really when you have success in any specific sport, teams will come and pick you, obviously from the front office, from the coaching staff, and from your players to try and get a piece of what you have and that culture and that success that you've built. They want it for themselves. The Jets are an example of this, of course, going out and getting Aaron Glenn. They also took a few other coaches from the Lions coaching staff last year. And of course, Ben Johnson, the hottest coaching candidate on the market, goes from being an offensive coordinator, a great mind for the Detroit Lions, engineer of a consistent top 5 offense, now over to the Bears. And he brings a few coaches with him alongside with him. And so those type of things will happen on a consistent basis for teams that stay at the top. They get picked over as far as the great minds that help build them, as far as the front office, and obviously those that help coach these rosters as far as the coaching staff is concerned. And so, with that being said, looking at Dan Campbell himself and obviously this front office and what they've been able to build as far as the grades are concerned, I've got Dan Campbell at A minus. And I think in a dissimilar way to a coach that I'll talk about later on in the series, the true ability to be able to take a team when things are down and it's like at the worst, and being able to build up a culture from the ground up and have everybody buy in from day one, I think is a true talent and a true skill of leadership that Dan Campbell exemplifies. And yes, there are some elements of the offensive side of the ball that he has his hands in. And I think he's actually a smarter football coach than people give him a lot of credit for. Maybe he doesn't give you the awesome scheme advantages of a LaFleur or a McVay from that standpoint, but I do think that he does bring more to the table on offense than people realize from that aspect as well. And then you talk about the game calling, and people will obviously discuss the going for fourth down, sometimes as a negative for the Detroit Lions. I think it's one of their greatest advantages, being able to, in modern football, have to force the defense to understand that they're defending 4 downs instead of 3. It gets into your mentality as far as second and third down of what you can call and saying, hey, we're not just trying to keep them from the sticks and keep them out of 4th and 2. Well, guess what? They're going for 4th and 2. We got to do more than that as far as that third down is concerned. So that changes where your mentality is at from the team across from you. And it puts added pressure as far as the opposite offense of saying, hey, we got to continue to put points on the board because this team is using 4 downs, and that's giving them an advantage. And the aggressiveness, I think, is something to be commended in the way in which he calls a game. And I think Dan Campbell is simply a great coach in the National Football League, certainly top 10 as far as I'm concerned. And then this front office, the roster that they built, it's one of the best in the National Football League for good reason. The consistent draft assets they've been able to put into good use. The Jared Goff trade has been able to put them in a position in which not only can they have a franchise quarterback that's, in my opinion, a little bit better than a bridge quarterback, but also have the assets to go along with it to build around them accordingly. And they've made those assets count, like guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, like J-Mo Williams, across the offensive line. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is a part of that as well. Bringing in David Montgomery from the Bears is a part of that aspect too. AIDAN Hutchinson, of course. And some of these are obviously high picks and obvious picks, but they're still worthwhile. Jack Campbell, I think improved in his second year too. Brian Branch, TERRION Arnold. We'll talk about these guys as we go through it, but they have put their fingerprints all over this roster, and Dan Campbell and the culture that he's created has allowed them to establish themselves as a successful team in the National Football League that other teams are envious from and want to take away from. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the offseason review. Ends up moving on from this Lions team last year. Frank Ragnow retires as one of the best centers in the National Football League. And that's two immediate pillars of what this team has looked like for the past few years. A part of obviously the offensive line has been excellent over these last half decade as well to be able to build up this Lions team into a winner. Zadarius Smith was a key piece of their pass rush last season. He is currently a free agent. Could come back, of course. We'll see what ends up happening. Colton Davis moves on from the secondary. Ifiatu Melifanu also moves on from the safety room, and then Emmanuel Mosley also leaves the corner room. As far as the additions, trying to be able to account for some of that cornerback depth that ends up leaving out the door. Obviously, DJ Reed comes over from the New York Jets, where I thought that obviously he was pinned as a guy that was more of a kind of set cornerback too, but really the responsibilities that were consistently asked from him, in my opinion, were much higher than just being a regular quarterback too, which I think is something that needs to be taken into account. Roy Lopez comes over to help with the defensive line. Grant Stewart also gives you some linebacker depth. Vontae Maddox, again, adding back into that secondary pseudo safety, can play a little nickel corner as well. Rockison also adding to the cornerback depth of this team. And then finally, as far as the draft is concerned, they went out and addressed a big need as far as some run stuffing capabilities up front. Tyreek Williams at Ohio State certainly brings that. Tate Ratledge adding to the offensive line necessary in the interior offensive line, obviously going back to losing Zeitler and Ragnow. Isaac Tesla was a surprising trade-up pick, but a guy that certainly during preseason has flashed and may be already ready. I shouldn't say maybe, but looks ready to immediately take over the wide receiver 3 role in this offense. Miles Frazier also added. Ahmed Hassan added along the defensive line, and then Dan Jackson also added to try and bolster this roster from the draft perspective. And so with all that being said, as far as the expectations for the Lions, obviously last year did not go how they wanted it to. The year previously, they were obviously in the NFC Championship game. This is a team that wants to be in the Super Bowl and wants to win it. And I think that that's a fair expectation for where they're at. Aiden Hutchinson being back is a big piece of that. I think that's where they feel like they fall within the NFL pecking order. With that being said, let's talk about the guy that's been to a Super Bowl before and wants to lead the Lions one, Jared Goff. As far as Jared Goff is concerned, and he comes on in 12th in my power rankings, or I should say quarterback tier specifically. And I think that some of the ways in which Jared Goff has been talked about has been a little bit miscast. A lot of people that are detractors from him will say, he's a little bit more of a game manager, taking advantage of the surroundings around him. And I don't fully agree with that, because there are things that he does beyond a game manager as far as risk taking with his arm talent that goes beyond that. And I think that's why he's a little bit better than a bridge quarterback in what he brings to the table for this Lions offense. And I think that the beautiful thing about Jared Goff's growth is a lot of times in which the ways he was operating within, Sean McVay's offense, is that a lot of things had to be specifically defined for him. And he's been able to expand his ability to go through multiple reads within the offense. There are a lot of things in which Ben Johnson has still laid out and within the structure of this offense that definitely helps him significantly, allows him to, operate on time. But he's really become confident in being able to understand what the reads are supposed to be, understanding what the picture is post-snap, putting his foot in the ground on time and delivering the ball in structure. And that's even while under pressure. And I think that that's a real area that he's grown, and being able to not be phased as much as far as the pressure is concerned and be confident in what he's seeing. And so shout out to Jared Goff and the growth that he's really shown. And again, this is a quarterback that already was able to be the quarterback of a team that got to the Super Bowl. He has the ability to do that once again, as well, as far as this Lions team is concerned. So along those lines, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the roster that wants to help him get there. So as far as this defense, the headliner here is Mr. Aiden Hutchinson, coming back off of that injury that was significant last year. Fortunately, he's been able to work his way back. Looks like he's ready to go for the regular season, opener, and that is great to hear because this kid got off to a blazing start last year. He was the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year for good reason, with the pass rush production that he was bringing to the table, and also good versus the run. Their pass rush was built around what he brought to the table, and they really had to change. I don't want to say change, but really accelerate and increase the volume of blitzes that they used as far as Aaron Glenn's defense was concerned, because they didn't have Aiden Hutchinson when he went out. So he's a big piece coming back now. They went out and added DJ Reader as well. And like I mentioned earlier, Tyreek Williams on the interior to kind of be a nice combination to stuff the run really that they had been missing pretty recently. And then Marcus Davenport on the other side is the primary defensive end option, and we'll see if that continues to hold up for the rest of the year as well. big piece, unfortunately, that is missing and going to continue to be missed for the regular season, or for the entire season, I should say, is Aleem McNeil, of course, out of this defensive line. And as far as the linebacking core, Alex Anzalone and Jack Campbell form a solid 1-2 punch. Jack, again, improved, I think, in coverage last year. Him taking another step to being, even better in coverage would be a big key for him to be one of the better inside linebackers and off-ball linebackers, I'll say, specifically in the National Football League. We'll see if he can take that step. And then as far as the secondary is concerned, it's got some talent. TERRION Arnold coming off of a rookie year that was a little bit shaky. Added DJ Reed, a veteran, a little bit on the smaller side, but a guy that still plays really well as far as I'm concerned. Amik Robinson and Avonte Maddox in the nickel for the different looks and options there. And then as far as the safety room is concerned, one of the best safety duos in the National Football League, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph. Both of those guys are incredibly versatile. Both of those guys can play deep, can play in the box, can play a little bit of robber. They have a lot of versatility, and they can play man coverage too if you need to. So shout out to the way in which they built the secondary. For me, a little bit of a B plus. The Tyleik Williams is a little bit of a question mark. And the secondary pass rush, I'll talk about a little bit later, is a thing that's going to hold me back from giving today. But still B plus, still a good defense, and we'll see what the new defense coordinator can do with them as far as that is concerned. With that aspect being said, let's go ahead and get to my first breakout. So my first breakout is TERRION Arnold, and I understand why some people would be like, watch the games last year, didn't necessarily see it from him. In my opinion, I saw the movement ability, I saw some man coverage flashes. It's, again, more of a consistency thing, and I think there was a lot of times in which he was left on an island more so than the Lions really wanted to, especially to ease him in. But some of that trial by fire, in my opinion, will end up helping him in the long run, and hopefully this can be a sophomore leap from him, coming out of Alabama. And honestly, this team could really use it. And if you get that out of him, and then also with DJ Reed, and you add in how good the safety duo is, then some of the pass rush concerns can then be mitigated. And I think that's a big thing for what this defense is going to end up looking like this upcoming year. So I think, TERRION Arnold, I think, has what it takes to break out. He was a prospect that I like him in Alabama. The things that I saw on tape there showed up on tape his rookie year. They just weren't consistent enough. I think he can find that in the second year, as far as the cornerback position is concerned for the Lions. With that being said, let's talk about what's got me excited. The Lions recently have done such a good job at being able to develop offensive linemen, and this is what's got me excited in this aspect of being able to now take two guys, a rookie, Tate Ratledge, a second-year player, and Christian Mahogany, and being able to see what they become as far as weapons are concerned for the Detroit Lions. And Mahogany slipped a little bit in the draft, some things in the pre-draft process as far as, his career there, but I thought coming out of Boston College, he was a guy that had future starter ability, and obviously him being able to kind of spend a little bit of time on the bench last year certainly will help. And then Tate Ratledge, second-round pick out of Georgia this year, seemed to be a ready-made starter at a guard position as well. So both of these guys are, being trusted and counted upon to be across this offensive line in year one. The fact that they got two good tackles to either side of them, I think will help a lot as far as that aspect is concerned. But I like the way that the Lions develop offensive linemen. I'm going to be interested to see how they try and weaponize these two new young additions to their starting lineup. So with that being said, let's get to their concern. So this, of course, is Zadarius Smith, who's playing for the Detroit Lions last year. And this is my concern, the secondary pass rush. And I talked about, again, after AIDAN Hutchinson went out, things got, desperate in general, and they had to blitz more, and that left the defense more vulnerable on the back end, in my personal opinion. Obviously, Hutchinson being back gives them that alpha level pass rusher to hopefully that they won't have to do that. But again, Zadarius was still a key piece, and he was able to really help out as far as AIDAN was concerned, especially early on in the season for both of these guys to rush after quarterbacks. The fact that that guy still isn't here, he still may come back, is going to be a real question mark about where else does it come from, because trusting Marcus Davenport to stay healthy and then also give it to you is not always the thing you can. Tyleik Williams, again, more of the run stuff. DJ Reader, it's again, younger DJ Reader maybe, but this DJ Reader I'm not really sure about, and it gets really thin after that very quickly. So it's going to be a question mark as far as the secondary pass rush is concerned. And hey, maybe the answer ultimately will be bringing Zadarius Smith back. We'll have to see. With that being said, let's get to my hot take. So when a lot of people talk about the Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford trade with between the Lions and the Rams, a lot of people talk about it and say it's a win-win because of what the Lions were able to get out of it. Obviously, the draft pick compensation and Jared Goff, and obviously the Rams were able to win a ring off of the Matthew Stafford trade and being able to have him as their starting quarterback. Rather, the situation is, and I hate, it's just the way I see things. It's not a win-win. One team has won because they have the ring. One team has not been able to achieve that, and if they do, then you could say it's a win-win. But until that happens, it's I can't really go that far to say it's a win-win because at the end of the day, this is a hey, you either win or you don't type of a game. And the trades obviously are incredibly complex and they have different branching points, things of that nature. Of course, assets get moved for different deals and they obviously get picked and don't work out for different reasons. But ultimately, when you're talking about two significant pieces and two specific pieces as the franchise quarterbacks for each team, one guy got the ring there, the other guy is still searching for it. I'm gonna have to say one team did win the trade, and until the other team can match it, I can't say the same for them. And so, no shot at the Detroit Lions. It's just the reality of how I look at it. I don't believe it's a win-win trade. It's a win for the Rams, and the Lions so far have come out as a very successful franchise as a result of that trade. Can they continue to actually get into making it a win-win? We'll have to see. Let's go ahead and get to the predictions. As far as the predictions, I will have to say my bold prediction for this upcoming season is that the Lions do not end up winning the NFC North. I think it's too much competition and too much consistent competition for the Packers or Vikings to not wrestle one away from them, or even the Bears as far as that aspect is concerned. And then I still have them being, really a team though, and obviously I still have them being a top 5 team as far as my power ranking. So I got them at 11-6, good enough to be second in the NFC North, and obviously have a chance to continue making a playoff run. But in my opinion, they will not win the NFC North in the upcoming season. So of course they can. I'm just not predicting it. So thank you guys so much for coming by to watch the Lions 2025 NFL season preview. Please do like this video where I DMW Sports. Please do subscribe and check out all the other videos as well at DMW Sports on TikTok and Twitter, and then at Sports D.